خفي مكرك وظهر أمرك وغلب قهرك وجرت قدرتك ولا يمكن الفرار من حكومتك. اللهم لا أجد لذنوبي غافرا ولا لقبائحي ساترا ولا لشيء من عملي القبيح بالحسن مبدلا غيرك. لا إله إلا أنت سبحانك وبحمدك ظلمت نفسي وتجرأت بجهلي وسكنت إلى قديم ذكرك لي ومنك علي. اللهم مولاي كم من قبيح سترته وكم من فادح من البلاء يقلته وكم من عثار وقيته وكم من مكروه دفعته وكم من ثناء جميل لست أهلا له نشرته. اللهم عظم بلائي وأفرط بي سوء حالي وقصرت بي أعمالي وقعدت بي أغلالي وحبسني عن نفعي بعد آمالي وخدعتني الدنيا بغرورها ونفسي بخيانتها. ومطالي يا سيدي فأسألك بعزتك لا يحجب عنك دعائي سوء عملي وفعالي ولا تفضحني بخفي ما اطلعت عليه من سري ولا تعاجلني بالعقوبة على ما عملته في خلواتي من سوء فعلي وإساءتي ودوام تفريطي وجهالتي وكثرة شهواتي وغفلتي. وكن اللهم بعزتك لي في الأحوال كلها رؤوفا وعلي في جميع الأمور عطوفا. إلهي وربي من لي غيرك أسأله كشف ضري والنظر في أمري. إلهي ومولاي أجريت علي حكما اتبعت فيه هوى نفسي ولم أحترس فيه من تزيين عدوي فغرني بما أهوى وأسعده على ذلك القضاء فتجاوزت بما جرى علي من ذلك بعض حدودك وخالفت بعض أوامرك فلك الحجة علي في جميع ذلك ولا حجة لي فيما جرى علي فيه حكمك وقضاؤك وألزمني حكمك وقضاؤك. وقد أتيتك يا إلهي بعد تقصيري وإسرافي على نفسي معتذرا نادما منكسرا مستقيلا مستغفرا منيبا مقرا مذعنا معترفا لا أجد مفرا مما كان مني ولا مفزعا أتوجه إليه في أمري غير قبولك عذري وإدخالك إياي في ساعة من رحمتك. اللهم فاقبل عذري وارحم شدة ضري وفكني من شدي وثاقي. يا رب ارحم ضعف بدني يا رب ارحم ضعف بدني ورقة جلدي ودقة عظمي يا من بدأ خلقي وذكري وتربيتي وبري وتغذيتي هبني لابتداء كرمك وسعل في برك بي. يا إلهي وسيدي وربي، أتراك معذبي بنارك بعد توحيدك، وبعد من طوى عليه قلبي من معرفتك، ولهج به لساني من ذكرك، واعتقده ضميري من حبك، وبعد صدق اعترافي ودعائي خاضعا لربوبيتك. هيهات أنت أكرم من أن تضيع من ربيته، أو تبعد من أدنيته، أو تشرد من آويته، أو تسلم إلى البلاء من كفيته ورحمته. وليت شعري يا سيدي وإلهي ومولاي، أتسلط النار على وجوه خرت لعظمتك ساجدة، وعلى ألسن نطقت بتوحيدك صادقة، وبشكرك مادحة، وعلى قلوب اعترفت بإلهيتك محققة، وعلى ضمائر حوت من العلم بك حتى صارت خاشعة، وعلى جوارح سعت إلى أوطان تعبدك طائعة، وأشارت باستغفارك مذعنة. ما هكذا الظن بك، ولا أخبرنا بفضلك عنك يا كريم يا رب، وأنت تعلم ضعفي عن قليل من بلاء الدنيا وعقوباتها، وما يجري فيها من المكاره على أهلها، على أن ذلك بلاء ومكروه قليل مكثوه، يسير بقاؤه، قصير مدته، فكيف احتمالي لبلاء الآخرة وجليل وقوع المكاره فيها، وهو بلاء تطول مدته ويدوم مقامه ولا يخفف عن أهله، لأنه لا يكون إلا عن غضبك وانتقامك وسخطك. وهذا ما لا تقوم له السماوات والأرض يا سيدي، فكيف بي وأنا عبدك الضعيف الذليل الحقير المسكين المستكين. يا إلهي وربي وسيدي ومولاي، لأي الأمور إليك أشكو، ولما منها ضج وأبكي، لأليم العذاب وشدته أم لطول البلاء ومدته. فلئن صيرتني للعقوبات مع أعدائك، وجمعت بيني وبين أهل بلائك، وفرقت بيني وبين أحبائك وأوليائك، فهبني يا إلهي وسيدي ومولاي وربي. صبرت على عذابك، فكيف أصبر على فراقك؟ وهبني صبرت على حر نارك، فكيف أصبر على النظر إلى كرامتك؟ أم كيف أسكن في النار ورجائي عفوك؟ فبعزتك يا سيدي ومولاي أقسم صادقا، لئن تركتني ناطقا لأضجن إليك بين أهلها ضجيج العاملين، ولأصرخن إليك صراخ المستصرخين، ولا أبكين عليك بكاء الفاقدين، ولو نادينك أين كنت يا ولي المؤمنين، يا غاية آمال العارفين، يا غياث المستغيثين، يا حبيب قلوب الصادقين، ويا إله العالمين. أفتراك سبحانك يا إلهي وبحمدك تسمع فيها صوت عبد مسلم سجن فيها بمخالفته، وضاق طعم عذابها بمعصيته، وحبس بين أطباقها بجرمه وجريرته، وهو يضج إليك ضجيج مؤمل لرحمتك، ويناديك بلسان أهل توحيدك، ويتوسل إليك بربوبيتك يا مولاي. فكيف يبقى في العذاب وهو يرجو ما سلف من حلمك؟ أم كيف تؤلمه النار وهو يأمل فضلك ورحمتك؟ أم كيف يحرقه لهيبها وأنت تسمع صوته وترى مكانه؟ أم كيف يشتمل عليه زفيرها وأنت تعلم ضعفه؟ أم كيف يتقلقل بين أطباقها وأنت تعلم صدقه؟ أم كيف تزجره زبانيتها وهو يناديك يا رباه؟ أم كيف يرجو فضلك في عتقه منها فتتركه فيها؟ هيهات، ما ذلك الظن بك، ولا المعروف من فضلك، ولا مشبه لما عاملت به الموحدين من برك وإحسانك، فباليقين يقطع لولا ما حكمت به من تعذيب جاحديك، وقضيت به من إخلاد معانديك، لجعلت النار كلها بردا وسلاما، وما كانت لأحد فيها مقرا ولا مقاما، لكنك تقدست أسماؤك أقسمت أن تملاها من الكافرين من الجنة والناس أجمعين، وأن تخلد فيها المعاندين، وأنت جل ثناؤك قلت مبتدئا، وتطولت بالأنعام متكرما، أفمن كان مؤمنا كمن كان فاسقا لا يستوون. إلهي وسيدي، فأسألك بالقدرة التي قدرتها وبالقضية التي حتمتها وحكمتها وغلبت من عليه أجريتها، أن تهب لي في هذه الليلة وفي هذه الساعة كل جرم أجرمته، وكل ذنب أذنبته، وكل قبيح أسررته، وكل جهل عملته، كتمته أو أعلنته، أخفيته أو أظهرته، وكل سيئة أمرت بإثباتها الكرام الكاتبين الذين وكلتهم بحفظ ما يكون مني، وجعلتهم شهودا علي مع جوارحي، وكنت أنت الرقيب علي من ورائهم والشاهد لما خفي عنهم، وبرحمتك أخفيته وبفضلك سترته، وأن توفر حظي من كل خير أنزلته، أو إحسان تفضله، أو بر تنشره، أو رزق تبسطه، أو ذنب تغفره، أو خطأ تستروه يا ربي يا ربي يا رب يا ربي. يا إلهي والسيدي ومولاي ومالك رقي، يا من بيده ناصيتي، يا عليما بضري ومسكنتي، يا خبيرا بفقري وفاقتي، يا ربي يا ربي يا رب يا ربي. أسألك بحقك وقدسك وأعظم صفاتك وأسمائك أن تجعل أوقاتي من الليل والنهار بذكرك معمورة وبخدمتك موصولة وأعمالي عندك مقبولة، حتى تكون أعمالي وأورادي كلها وردا واحدا، وحالي في خدمتك السرمدا. يا سيدي يا من علي معولي، يا من إلي شكوت أحوالي، يا ربي يا ربي يا رب، قو على خدمتك جوارحي، واشدد على العزيمة جوانحي، وابلي الجد في خشيتك والدوام في الاتصال بخدمتك، حتى أسرح إليك في ميادين السابقين، وأسرع إليك في المبادرين، وأشتاق إلى قربك في المشتاقين، وأدنو منك دنو المخلصين، وأخافك مخافة الموقنين، وأجتمع في جوارك مع المؤمنين. اللهم ومن أرادني بسوء فأريد، ومن كادني فكيد، واجعلني من أحسن عبيدك نصيبا عندك، وأقربهم منزلة منك، وأخصهم زلفة لديك، فإنه لا ينال ذلك إلا بفضلك، وجد لي بجودك، واعطف علي بمجدك، واحفظني برحمتك، واجعل لساني بذكرك لهجا، وقلبي بحبك متيما، ومن علي بحسن إجابتك، وأقلني عثرتي، واغفر زلتي، فإنك قضيت على عبادك بعبادتك، وأمرتهم بدعائك، وضمنت لهم الإجابة، فإليك يا ربي نصبت وجهي، وإليك يا ربي مددت يدي، فبعزتك استجب لي دعائي، وبلغني مناي، ولا تقطع من فضلك رجائي، واكفني شر الجن والإنس من أعدائي، يا سريع الرضا يا سريع الرضا، اغفر لمن لا يملك إلا الدعاء، فإنك فعال لما تشاء، يا من اسمه دواء، وذكره شفاء، وطاعته غنى، ارحم من رأس ماله الرجاء، وسلاحه البكاء، يا سابغ النعم، يا دافع النقم، يا نور المستوحشين في الظلم، يا عالما لا يعلم، صل على محمد وآله محمد، وافعل بما أنت أهله، وصلى الله على رسوله والأئمة الميامين من آله، وسلم تسليما كثيرا.
صل على محمد
وإلى شرف النبي وآله الطيبين الطاهرين نهدي ثواب صورة المباركة الفاتحة مسبوقة بذكر محمد وآل محمد.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. أحسنتم.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
عليكم السلام ورحمة الله. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء وسيد المرسلين حبيب قلوبنا وطبيب نفوسنا صاحب السكينة مدفونة في المدينة المبعوثة رحمة للعالمين أبو القاسم محمد.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد
وعلى أهل بيت الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المظلومين وبعد. ولعنة دائما على أعدائهم أجمعين من الآن إلى يوم قيام الدين. قال جل جلاله في محكم كتابه الكريم وقوله الحق: أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. يا الذين يبلغون رسالات الله ويخشونه ولا يخشون أحدا إلا الله وكفى بالله حسيبا. آمنا بالله. صدق الله العلي العظيم. صلوا على محمد وآل محمد.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
Brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. This verse in which I read is of course from the Holy Quran, chapter 33, Surah Al-Ahzab, where God Almighty says and calls out, there are those of you who call and deliver the message of God, and they only fear God. وَيَخْشَوْنَهُ وَلَا يَخْشَوْنَ أَحَدًا إِلَّا اللَّهِ. And of course, their driving force is the end of the ayah, and God sufficient to the account. SubhanAllah, when I said this ayah, automatically something should have came to your head. That there are people that you've come close to in your life, or your bond and connected with, that really fall into the category of this. That they go forth to the message of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, not fearing anything. Only their, subhanallah, their humility and closeness to God is what drives them forth. They don't care what the people say, as long as the message remains alive. Honestly, straight away, as soon as you think about these conditions, who comes to your head? None other than Ahlul Bayt. Honestly, it's true. When you look at the verses of the Quran in deep thought and ponder and reflect, like the Ahlul Bayt have told us, that this Quran is something that you should really go into the depths of it and think of each part of it, because it's the only communication with the ahadith of Ahlul Bayt. Yes, we have the famous narration that you must hold on to the Thaqalain or Thiqlain and some other hadith, the two weighty things, the Holy Quran and Ahlul Bayt. But your true communication to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is only through this. And it's through this true communication that a servant can convey the real message of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So if I said to you, honestly, the BP refinery oil disaster, the New Zealand derailment disaster, the BP Horizon Deepwater oil spill, the Clen natural gas explosion. You know, straight away, none of you might have heard of this, but from explosion to derailment, you all understand that there has been some type of catastrophe here, some disaster. I said this to remind you that even what was the driving force or the domino effect that caused this disaster was the lack of communication. You look at these disasters that happen in the world, some in America, some in New Zealand, we've had some in Australia. You'll find if you did an investigation back of it, what was the number one factor that actually caused a disaster was simple. There was no communication when it came to the 5% factor when it comes to changing shifts. A shift handover. Another shift came to replace another shift. They didn't tell them what was going on. In fact, in some of the instances, they didn't even give a handover. And most of you know that sometimes when you work in industry, one of the most important factors to communicate of how the previous shift went on is to communicate with the person and tell him, okay, this was happened, this is what might happen, so keep an eye on it. In fact, the famous Irish, you could say, poet and an English writer, and who also was a politician back in the late 1800s, he says the single biggest problem when it comes to communication, listen to this, is the illusion that has taken place. That, you know, he's saying that, you know who George Barnett Shaw is? Most people have heard this. Sometimes you hear him with famous sayings. When he said, subhanAllah, listen to his saying it. He said, Islam is the best of religions, but the Muslims are the worst followers. George Barnett Shaw. George Barnett Shaw was the one that said, if there's anyone that should be called the savior of mankind, it's none other than Prophet Muhammad. George Barnett Shaw said that if he was given the leadership of today's modern society, he would know how to govern it in a way that would bring peace and happiness into society. George Barnett Shaw. Yeah, so this person said that when it comes to communication, what he said was very important, that Islam is a great religion. He goes, but its followers are the worst, because they have not taken from God's greatest ever creation, his words, and they've taken them, and instead of taking them lightly, in terms of in respect and honor and holding on to them and obeying with obedience, they've just neglected them or neglected. So to find that when it comes to this type of factor, communication for us is of great importance, because now you see when I give some examples that how does history, throughout history, how even the communicator has communicated something very important, then how did we get to the stage we are of the Islamic Ummah today? For instance, how did the Salah go from being that of steadfast, looking soldier type, to the Salah that where the majority of the Muslims pray now, with their hands crossed around their stomach? How do we get to this? How do we get now honestly, how do we get to something that, for instance, how do we get to something that the simple task of wudu now, and it's very clearly explained in the Quran, the aspects of wudu. How do we get from this to 50 types of, secular wash cycles they call in today's society for wudu? Only, of course, the lovers of Ahlul Bayt have kept forth to the true system. Why? Because they've held on to the Ahlul Bayt and the Quran. What I'm saying here, my brothers and sisters, when it comes to the importance of communication, you have several types of people. And each people, you will see that you come across these people on an everyday basis. When I convey a message or try to communicate with someone, there are several categories that will happen. The first category are those that don't pay attention. their minds, you know, in an off land. See, subhanAllah, when you have safety meetings at work, they say you don't go and talk about safety or safety aspects in the crib room, do you? Where they're having lunch. Why is that? Because most people are occupied with what they're eating. See, usually when it's something safety, they pick an environment, and so the person say, you know what, this is we don't want nothing. We want you to focus on so-called the boards, and this is of great importance, so they can focus. Secondly, we have another type of communication where the communicator doesn't himself give enough information. Like he's giving a message, but he might miss out some important factors. For instance, he says to the person, I need these important papers done by Friday. And the person responds, yes, you have them by Friday. With a normal average person that works from 9 to 5, he thinks he's got to 5 p.m. in the evening to give the important piece of papers. The boss comes to him at 10 o'clock in the morning and says to him, where's the paper? He said, you agreed to it. I said, yeah, I did agree to it. But you said to me on Friday. Friday is a long period of time. See, now that comes back to the person that communicated. He's the one who's at fault because he didn't specifically say, look, I need these by 10 a.m. in the morning. Another type of information is when I convey a message to you and you assume that it's something else. A great example is when the Holy Prophet ﷺ sent Khalid ibn Walid to call the people of Yemen to the Muslims, to the Islam. This bit I want you to understand, to say that this is not from our books as well. Because I'll give you, first of all, it's from Sahih al-Bukhari, book 64, hadith 368. Just so if in case people have attacked to see you, when the Prophet tells someone, listen to this, when Prophet tells someone to go and call to Islam, okay? If this person knew within himself the call of Islamic faith, what are characteristics, what virtues are needed. For instance, the Quran says, ادعوا لسبيل ربك بالحكمة والموعظة الحسنة وجادلهم بالتي هي أحسن. That's one point. Call onto people with this good maw'idha, good virtues and wisdom. And if in case they have a debate with them, repel in good words. Okay, that's one thing. Another one, can you force the religion to someone? The Quran says, لا إكراه في الدين. You can't. So when Khalid bin Walid, when the Prophet tells him, go and make sure that these people come to Islam, or not Islam, call them to Islam, he goes there, there's a bit of a croffle between them. This is written, I'll show you what happened. This is written. Khalid, instead of being lenient, being true to the call of Islam, what does he do? He starts killing them. He orders his men, the one who have captives, if they don't come to the religion the way I want them to come, kill them. The men themselves say, Khalid, what are you doing? This is what we're going to go complain to the Prophet. They in fact go complain to the Prophet. Listen to what the Prophet says. The Prophet himself goes, Allahumma inni abru ilayka mimma sana'a Khalid marra. And he says it marratayn. He says, oh God, please, I am free from what this person done. This is not the way to call Islam. Then who does he send? To Yemen? Who else? None other than Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam. He sends him. In a few short period of time, all of them become Muslims. Nafs Rasulullah. See, when the Prophet sent him, did he have to say to him other ways or make sure you don't do what Khalid did? No. Because the nafs of Rasulullah, when he knows how to communicate with the other people, he does exactly how the Prophet would have done. فَبِمَا رَحْمَةً مِّنَ اللَّهِ لِنْتَ لَهُمْ. The Holy Prophet, you were so gentle, if you were so harsh, they would have dispersed, لَفَضُّ مِنْ حَوْلَكَ. They would have ran away from you. Subhanallah, and we'll talk about the characteristics of when all of us here, including myself, when we convey the message of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and we communicate with other people, How do I do it? Isn't most importantly is through your akhlaq, huh? And of course you would have the knowledge and the wisdom of what you've been taught from the Holy Prophet and Ahlul Bayt to go forth. So when we look at this, that was another section that some people presume or they just come into their own mentality of what to do after a message has been communicated to them. The last part, the last one are the people, no matter what you speak to them, they got their own agenda. The biggest example, you all know it, Ghadirkhum. Huh? When the Prophet stood there, gave that long sermon from start to end, there was people there, he was communicating with it, and subhanAllah, I need you to understand this. When the Prophet, see there's a way when prophets or special people that are divine, when they speak to us, when they can get you to say yes, there's no hujjah on you anymore. You know what I'm saying? If you look at the sermon of Ghadir Khum, every time the Prophet said something, what did he make the people say? Bala, Ya Rasulullah. Go and look at it. It's true? Why is this so? This is psychological to show you that you have no hujjah anymore. You have said what I have said is true. And he said yes. In the end, you know what I always say? It's always that, that teacher that comes to you after you come to the final exam and he says, because I'm a good teacher, I'm going to go through the whole of the curriculum again, so you have no excuse to say that I didn't teach you. I'm going to be a good teacher. The Prophet, what he did with Ghadir al-Khum was this. He went through all of it. If you look at the hadith, he brought the virtues of Ali bin Abi Talib. He brought the virtues of Quran. He brought Tawheed. He brought Imama. He brought everything in it to say, look, you got no excuse. But there were still people there that said, you know what, we have our own agenda. The ones that said, Bakhan, Ya Ali, openly they said it. But in the end, you saw what they did. You saw the dhulm of what they did. The domino effect of their communication, what it's done to the Islamic Ummah today. Show you another example, was the great speech of Lady Fatima al-Zahra, salawatullah salam alayha, the khutbah al-Fadakiyya. Subhanallah, when I say Fadakiyya, everyone thinks, logically, you always think that it's got to do with Fadak. But honestly, I'm not going to have I don't want a show of hands, but in your heart, how many people have actually read the whole khutbah al-Fadakiyya? From start to end, and gone into details of it. Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar. To show you this speech could never have been presented by anyone except Sayyidina Nisa al-Alameen min al-awwaleen wal-akhirin. The way it was presented, it was exactly like Rasulullah was presenting Ghadir al-Khum. Because the way it's structured, have you seen the way it's structured? From praising God to Tawheed, to about where were you, where was Islam until my father came, about Imama, that Ali bin Abi Talib is amongst you, the best of you. She says everything in the speech. How much of it is actually attributed to Fadak? How much? The small part in the end of it, to show you that she used this stage to show there's something more important than here, and that is the Imama. Everything was based back to that you've gone against now what the Holy Prophet has said and who the Holy Prophet has ordained. Now when it comes to what I said about the importance of communicating, you have to understand that the disease that started off is something that we are very known to or familiar with. We've all heard, the children's game, they call it Chinese whispers. In America, I think they call it the broken telephone or telephone game or the pass-on game. So what happens is like, you tell someone something and then it goes along the path and then all of a sudden, by the time it gets to the end, the whole thing's changed. To show you that this system was by the enemies of Ahlul Bayt communicated to the point that you get someone like Ali bin Abi Talib, the people's question say, did Ali bin Abi Talib salli? Did he pray? How did we get from this? You know, imagine that. Imagine someone comes to you and say, Ali bin Abi Talib slept in the Prophet's bed, you know, ready there to sacrifice for himself. And then all of a sudden it goes along, and then you hear that, for instance, you know, so and so, like the first Caliph, slept in the bed. Then logically, what's up to you? Your logic is up to you now to go back and see, hold on a sec, no, that's not true. You know, where did it go missing? So who infiltrated and put this false information inside this very important situation? So it's up to us, and that's why whenever we see a hadith, we look at the sanad. We always go back and we see who narrated it, how authentic was it, are these people truthful, and so forth. So there were many other examples, but what I wanted to show you that this, going back to this, the communication factor, one important factor, and it's because it's related to Fatima al-Zahra, salawatullah salam alayha, to show you when there's a system was put into place, and the Chinese whisper system came into the Islamic faith, you know, hold a sec, the Prophet said, وَمَا أَتَاكُمْ وَرَسُولٌ فَخُذُوهُ. He said that. And then whatever the Prophet has given to you, take. And whatever he's not, and what he told you to stay away from, you stay away from. Okay, the law of inheritance. This is something all Muslims agree with it. That when something is in my property, I've had it now for several years, you come now and you say to me that this belongs to me. Islamically, who has to bring witnesses? Me, the one that's had it, or the other person? The other person has to. Islamically, if I have something and you come now and you say to me, that belongs to me, you have to bring witnesses that it shows it belongs to you. Not me, because it's been in my possession. This is the Islamic system. Okay, remember what I said? Then how did it change when Imam Ali alayhi salam has the heated debate with Abu Bakr? Look what he says to him first. First of all, remember I said to you before, you have to choose the environment. The environment has a very important factor. Imam Ali alayhi salam waits until the mosque is full of the Muhajirin or Ansar. He makes sure it's full. Then he goes up to Abu Bakr and he says, Abu Bakr, if the Muslims have something, first he goes to him, are you going to judge contrary to what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has told us through the Holy Prophet? He says, no, I judge what God has ordained. He says, okay, if the Muslims have something and I, Ali bin Abi Talib, come and ask and say that's mine, who would you ask for witnesses? He says, you, Ali. He says, good, all right. So then he says to him, Fatima al-Zahra, salawatullah salam alayha, Fadak was with her. He said, yes. He said, when she came and she wanted it back because you took it, why did you ask her for witnesses? See, the system was in here. How did it change? He goes, and then he goes, when he says it, he goes, forget about this situation and move on. He goes, Imam Ali goes, there's still one more thing. He says the famous verse, listen to this, the famous verse that came down with us. You know it all. 33:33. The 33:33. إنما يريد الله يذهب عنكم الرجس أهل البيت ويطهركم تطهيرا. That famous. Listen, this is in Tabrasi and also in another book from the other school of thought. Listen to what he says. Imam Ali alayhi salam goes to Abu Bakr. Did this verse come to us or to you? He says, to you, Ali. He says, okay. Now, if Fatima, and he goes, you and your family are Fatima. He goes, yes. He says, if someone came now and said that Fatima al-Zahra, the daughter of the Holy Prophet, had committed an indecent act, what would you do? He goes, I would punish her and I'll punish every other lady that did that act. He says, فَكَفَرْتَ. You have disbelieved. And Abu Bakr says, why? He says, because I just asked you about that verse before. So what you're saying, that you took the words of the people and he didn't take the word of God when he says that these people are the most purified people. Can you understand? So, Imam Ali alayhi salam, through this system of akhlaq, of wisdom, of humility, like being humble, in every way the virtues try to explain to these people, but what happened, there's always going to be a break of communication when that person, his mindset is somewhere else. All they could see at this point was their position in power. Now, you know why they wanted the bay'ah, don't you? Very simple. Because no matter what army you have, my brothers and sisters, no matter what, wealth, and anything that in power, there's something more important than all of this. Do you know what it is? Words. Words. In lieu of physical violence, like you can use physical violence to get your communication, words will always retain their power. The Quran, words. Ahlul Bayt, words. Imam Ali alayhi salam, they wanted what they did, the bay'ah was a word. You know, sometimes when we see these celebrities, they want to sell something and they always get this other person to come along, say, we got Michael Jordan here, he's going to, he's promoting here the shoes, and then Michael Jordan says something, says, yeah, because he said it, it must be important. The same thing. They needed the words of Ahlul Bayt. They needed the words of the house in which God says, "Fi biyutan adhan Allah an tarfa yudhkuru fi ismut." They needed this. Words. They knew that if they had the words of Ahlul Bayt, then everyone would come to them without any force. Subhanallah, can you understand what words are? I'll give you an important, I'll show you that words, and Ahlul Bayt says again the importance of words. When Imam Zain Abidin alayhi salam was taken through Damascus, and a man by the name of Ibrahim bin Talha bin Ubaidullah, he came to the Imam, he started to mock the Imam. Look what Bani Umayyah did with you. You call yourself victorious. Look at you, you're in chains and that. You think you call yourself victorious? Have you won? Look at the Imam, what he says to him. The Imam goes, look, oh so-and-so, that Talha, it's time for adhan and aqama. When you read the aqama and the adhan, know that we have won. We have won. What's the adhan? Words. What's the aqama? Words. But words is what has made the greatest ever prophet come out. And no matter what tyrant was in front of him, subhanallah, Musa. First of all, God tells Musa to go to the biggest tyrant. True? He goes to him, what is that? He goes to him, not just go to him, Musa. He says, فَقَوْلَ لَهُ قَوْلًا لَيْنًا لَعَلَّهُ يَتَذَكَّرَ أَوْ يَخْشَى. True? Go to him, O Musa, in his gentle way. Maybe that his heart might move. He might remember. Musa knew that he was going against the biggest dictatorship of that time. True? Did Musa ask for an army? What did he ask for? Rabbi ishrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wahlul 'aqdan min lisani yafqahu qawli. Subhanallah. Can you understand? All Musa wanted in order to go forth was this way that he can express words, divine words, maybe. اذهب إلى فرعون إنه طغى. That he went to Pharaoh, maybe with your words, O Musa, he might woken up. But to show you that he went to the superpower, but all he wanted was words, the Holy Prophet. Subhanallah. He says that the words, that the Quran says, Al-Kalam Al-Tayyib. The Kalam Al-Tayyib. That this beautiful word is what can bring this essence and wake up and this, hopefully this awakening to people to come back to this path and to awake and say, hold on a sec, wow, what was I doing? And this is the point that we should understand when it comes to any situation. When the Quran says, الَّذِينَ يُبَلِّغُونَ رِسَالَاتِ اللَّهِ وَيَخْشَوْنَهُ وَلَا يَخْشَوْنَ أَحَدًا إِلَّا اللَّهِ. They go forth, like the Holy Prophet, like the many other prophets before. Every single prophet that went forth with this mission, they knew that sometimes it might lead to their martyrdom in going forth. For instance, Zachariah, Prophet Zachariah, we all know what happened to him. He was sawn in half. Yahya, his beloved son, he was beheaded. His head was given on a golden plate to a disgusting lady. You know, we had beautiful lovers of Ahlul Bayt. Maytham al-Tammar. The final, assault on him was with what? Because even though they crucified him, what was he still doing? Saying the virtues of Ali bin Abi Talib alayhi salam. Hung there, words still, it irritated Muawiyah. Yeah, subhanAllah, that's why, if you understand, when the first so-called oppressor came into power, you know, the first thing they did is to get rid of what? What did they do? They gathered all the what? Hadith books and what? They burnt him. Why? Because words again have this power to awaken people. That they thought maybe if we make these people ignorant, jahil, that they might forget Ahlul Bayt. Habib Albig, you have forgotten. The Quran says, يُرِيدُونَ أَن نُطْفُوا النُّورَ اللَّهِ بِأَفْوَاهِمْ. They try to distinguish the nur of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with their mouths. God says, no way. This is my Ahlul Bayt. This is the people that God says, فَقَدْ أَتَيْنَا آلِ إِبْرَاهِيمِ. We have given Ali Ibrahim al-Kitaba wal-Hikmah. We gave them. Yeah. There's no way. إِنَّ اللَّهَ اصْطَفَى آدَمَ وَنُوح وَآلِ إِبْرَاهِيمِ وَآلِ عِمْرَانَ عَلَى الْعَالَمِينَ. God chose them. No matter what you do to distinguish this light, you can't extinguish it. Mustahil. Because they know that their words will always change people. How many stories have we heard of the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam, whenever a enemy would come to him, even the people that were with them, they would want to attack him, the mom said, hold on a sec, let me deal with him. You know? أظنك غريب, like Imam Hassan al-Mujtaba, we see that you might be someone that's a stranger. If you need clothes, we'll clothe you. If you need money, we'll give you money. If you need a house, we'll give you a house. Yeah? Words. Subhanallah. And all of a sudden, the guy goes, you know, I came here thinking you are the worst of people. Now I leave here and you are the best of people. Subhanallah, words. You don't know how much you have been gifted to understand that you have been given the greatest ever madhab and the greatest ever madrasi, and that is none other than Muhammad wa Ali Muhammad. So I'd like to sum up now with this. Basically, what I've done, hopefully you should pick up a few little factors to hopefully encourage you that whenever you go forth to be, remember this ayah that come in the Quran, الَّذِينَ يُبَلِّغُونَ رِسَالَاتِ اللَّهِ وَيَخْشَوْنَهُ وَلَا يَخْشَوْنَ أَحَدًا إِلَّا اللَّهِ. That when you go forth to convey the messages of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, yes, there is difficult trials, there's situations, but know that God said that if you are with me, like with God, then I'm going to be with you. That when you go there, be first of all, like the examples before, have good akhlaq. Secondly, choose the right environment. Thirdly, make sure that you get the intention. Fourthly, make sure that when you convey the message, you make sure they understand it. You might have to get them to repeat. Say, yes, we understand. All this is part of a system that makes you understand for you to go and deliver and have this great communication with anyone. Doesn't matter if it's a Muslim, a non-Muslim, but to show you so that in the end, that the people can say, you know what, this person, when they ask you what madhab you are, you can proudly say, I'm a Ja'fari. Why? Because my great Imam Ja'far al-Sadiq said to me, كونوا دعوة لنا بغير سنتكم. كونوا زينا لنا ولا تكونوا شيئا علينا. The Imam said, you have to be there. And when the Imam tours the person, once he sees the person, he says to him, oh, so and so, know that every good action is good, but from you it's better. Why? Because you represent us. And know that every bad action is bad, but from you it's worse, because they're going to say that this person's a Shia. This guy, you're supposed to be following the madhab of Ja'far ibn Muhammad al-Sadiq alayhi salam. So when we communicate with people, take the examples of Ahlul Bayt. لَقَدْ كَانَ لَكُمْ فِي رَسُولِ اللَّهِ what? أُسْوَةً حَسَنَةً لِمَنْ كَانَ يَرْجَى اللَّهَ وَيَوْمَ الْآخِرَةِ. The Quran tells you this, that the best hasana for anyone is through the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam. So hopefully with these examples we can be of those of the great communicators. هذه وآخر دعوانا أن الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله على محمد وعلى أهل بيت الطيبين الطاهرين.